Hi everyone, Alexandra Jarrett, Jupiter Returns, here with your weekly astrology forecast for the week of October the 26th to November the 1st, 2020. We're moving into a very powerful full moon that's taking place towards the end of the week. And I've been aiming with last week's video, for those of you who watched it, to kind of pull us through this period of the lunar cycle into what's coming up with the full moon. We've moved through last week, which was a time when essentially the most active thing in our sky was Mercury retrograde there in Scorpio, in the sign of Scorpio, in opposition to Uranus down there in the sign of Taurus. So we're dealing here with two fixed signs. Taurus and Scorpio are fixed energy. So when we're looking at planets that like a lot of movement, essentially Mercury rules movement because it's this planet of communication and information. And all communication is essentially the movement of information or data from one place to another. That's what's taking place when we have a conversation with someone, or even when we're reading something. The information is coming from the page into my brain, and then when I have a conversation about it later, it's coming out of my mouth into the brain of someone else. It's this passage, it's this movement of information. So it's a very mutable energy. It's a change energy. It's an energy that likes movement. Okay. Uranus is the planet that we call, and you'll often hear this referred to, the change maker, or the planet of change and awakening and disruption. It's again, it's essentially what we refer to in astrology as the higher octave of Mercury. It's like Mercury kind of on steroids. So this is very sudden processes of information or change or movement. It's very, very, very lightning fast, very electrifying. So it's kind of doing the work of Mercury, but on a way, way bigger kind of scale. So we've got two planets here in a difficult aspect to each other, an aspect that involves an element of provocation and tension inherent within it, within the opposition, between two planets that want to make a change. And let's not forget that when Mercury is in retrograde, its whole kind of MO at that point in time is to go over something and have a look at it from another angle, like review it, and then change it, modify it, refine it. So, you know, it's all an amplification of change, but taking place in two signs that by their nature don't really kind of facilitate change too easily. So what happens is when change takes place in fixed signs, there's an increased kind of intensity because of the kind of the pressure that's building up, a little bit like a volcano, essentially, where, you know, there's a change that's trying to happen. As let's take the volcano analogy, rock has melted in the core of the earth, and it's already gone through part of a change process, and then it's coming up to the surface, which is very much what Mercury is doing in Scorpio, you know, bringing things up from the depths. And it's trying to then solidify, to come out and solidify into rock once more. But the pressure has to build up to facilitate that process. And it's quite eruptive. And this is exactly what's going on with Uranus. It's making that a very disruptive and eruptive process that can come about in very, very powerful and very sudden ways. So we really moved into this energy last week, and a lot of tension was provoked. We went through the first quarter square aspect of the moon, so that was intensifying things. And this energy follows through into the week that we're moving into now. So let's have a look at where we are then as we start this week. So Monday, the 26th of October, we've got the moon there. She's now waxing, so she is growing in her intensity and her size, the amount of light that she's able to receive from the sun and reflect back to us here on Earth is growing and growing and growing with each day that passes now. So she's moving towards becoming full in the sign of Taurus, which takes place at the end of the week. So keep watching and we'll cover that as we progress through the week. So today she's in Pisces. Pisces really is it's one of the water signs, so there's a greater sense of empathy, a greater emotionality today, and a greater commonality. So Pisces is the sign where we are least egoic. It's the sign where we see the fundamental core nature of everybody and how we connect in that vibration. It's the kind of the true essence of when we use words like namaste, you know, the higher the divine in me sees the higher in you. This is the kind of territory. So moon in Pisces can facilitate that kind of approach. It increases our sensitivity, though, in order for us to be able to go into that space and navigate that part of ourselves. Our sensitivity has to be increased. So we're starting off the week essentially feeling, which is what the moon does. It taps us into our feeling nature. We're feeling that much more empathetic, charitable, considerate, finding the commonality between ourselves and others, and more sympathetic, but where all of our senses are being stimulated to be a little bit more sensitive, essentially. We've also got today, since Sunday, essentially, Mercury has got to the part of its cycle where it's conjunct the sun. Okay, this part of the cycle is called the interior or inferior conjunction with the sun. So this takes place during the retrograde, and essentially this is Mercury and the sun coming together. And if we liken that to what happens at a new moon, okay, when we're following the moon cycle, a new moon takes place when the moon is conjunct the sun. Okay, it's this fertile, creative moment of the meeting of feminine moon energy and masculine yang solar energy. So the yin and the yang come together and we create a new thing. All right, it's this creative moment. All of the planets also have a connection to the sun as well. So we can kind of plot their cycle in a similar fashion. So this connection with the sun is essentially the same as going through the new moon. It's the new moon of Mercury. That's one way to look at it. So Mercury has been retrograding down into the deep shadowlands of Scorpio, trying to get to an underlying cause, find something out that's been hidden or suppressed, either intentionally or unintentionally. There can be elements of manipulation, lying, deceit, or it can just be, and that includes self-deceit, parts of ourselves that we deny or suppress or repress, or it can just be things that have become hidden, pushed down into the darkness where we don't want to look at them, essentially. Mercury digging down into this core deep space is rooting out all of that stuff. It's bringing it up to the surface and bringing it into the light of day. And so when Mercury comes together with the sun like this, it's saying, okay, something about this old way, something about what I've found down here that's been hidden now needs to be let go of. It's an ending point, like the new moon. It's a simultaneous release of the old to bring in space for something new. So that's where we're at in terms of Mercury right now. And it's an important part of the cycle of Mercury, because it's where we birth something new, essentially, where the change, or the discovery process that Mercury has been going through has brought to our attention something that was previously unseen. And now we have this opportunity to say, okay, what do I do with that? You know, and this is a process that will continue on through the coming days, so that then when Mercury goes forward again, we're clear on, when it goes back over that area of the chart that it's retrograding through. It's like, okay, I know now what I need to do differently in light of the information that I've received and had chance to look at and review. So this can also be a peak moment in terms of the challenges and difficulties that Mercury retrograde can bring us, communication difficulties and challenges, difficulties with machines, difficulties in terms of having to have a change, an unforeseen or unexpected change in movement of some kind. So journeys, short journeys, local journeys, they can often get disrupted. Our plans may need to change. All of these disruptive effects of Mercury is that expression of saying something needs to change. All right, so find the area of your chart where Mercury is retrograding. I'll give you the specifics now, because that's what Mercury likes. So the Mercury retrograde process that we're in at the moment is taking place between 25 degrees of Libra, so the very end 5 degrees of Libra, and 11 degrees of Scorpio. All right, so find that part of your chart. What are the houses that covers, and what planets are within that part of the chart, either directly or an aspect that's being made to the rest of the chart. If you're not super familiar with your chart, don't worry, get in touch with me, book a Moondala reading or a transit reading, and we can go through this together. We can navigate all of your chart and work out what this process means specifically for you. But in general terms, this is where it's taking place. It's a process that commenced on the 22nd of September. So issues that may have been brought up to the surface since that point in time, when Mercury is back here at 25 degrees of Libra, that's what's now being gone over, 11 degrees of Scorpio. That's what we're going over again. We're having to review that. We're having to look at that and say, okay, what do I think about this? What do I think about this hidden piece of information? How do I need to change now? What disruption is showing up in my life? And how does that kind of impact in terms of the future? You know, Uranus is all about the future, and it's all about my higher consciousness. And we'll come on to discuss that aspect of it a little bit more when I look at the full moon towards the end of the week. So 22nd of September, this process started. So between the 22nd of September and the 16th of October was what we call the pre-shadow of Mercury retrograde, all right? So that's the period of time where Mercury is just opening things up, bringing things up and bringing things to our attention. Then between October the 16th and the 3rd of November, that's the retrograde process. That's when Mercury is saying, okay, I need to go back over this. Something needs changing. Something needs to be really, really dealt with here that hasn't previously been dealt with adequately. All right. And then on the 3rd of November, which, yes, is the election day in the US, Mercury will station direct. All right. So the stations, when it stations retrograde and stations direct, much more powerful influence of Mercury. And let's not forget, considering the US election, a lot of the votes have already been cast during this period of time. Although Mercury stations direct on the election day, a lot of the votes have already been cast during the Mercury retrograde. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. So yeah, 3rd of November, Mercury will turn direct again, recover this, and then kind of put things back into place according to how much we've worked with the process, how much we've shown up there. and done what Mercury's asking us to do, which is give our attention to what's been brought up in terms of what was previously hidden. So this is the process of the new moon. Today, we are at that kind of the new moon moment where it's like, we've got to end one cycle, ready to start in and move into a new cycle. And let's also hold space for the idea, of course, that Mercury, being the ruler of Virgo, is also about healing. All right, it's about purifying, it's about cleaning, it's about improving. Okay, so that's also part of the MO of Mercury. So bear those kind of ideas and themes in mind in terms of how it might be showing up in your chart. So we've got this kind of burning away. It's called combust. All right, Mercury is combust the sun at this point in time. So the flames, the heat, that solar energy is burning away and purifying the old, so that it can come out as something fresh and new and revealing what's underneath in preparation to go forwards. Mercury may have kind of gone down into the Scorpio depths, pulled something up from there, and that needs to be purified. That needs to be burned away, all right, in the flames of the sun. So it will be completely different for everyone watching. So as we move then into Tuesday, so Tuesday the 27th of October, this is when Mercury is going to ingress back into the sign of Libra, okay? So we're continuing that new moon theme, but moving more into the, the old's been scorched away, ready for the new, and there's more of the emphasis on the new. So with Mercury going back into Libra, this is Venus-ruled territory, and this is really interesting. This is what I was trying to tap us into last week, because Venus, the ruler of Libra, is in Virgo right now, which is a Mercury-ruled sign. So we've got Venus in a Mercury-ruled sign and Mercury in a Venus-ruled sign. All right, so there's a lot of energy there pulling us in the direction of a purification, an improvement, a refinement in terms of relating, connecting. How do we connect? How do we relate? How do we value? Again, these are the Venusian qualities. So bringing those aspects in will be helpful in helping you to work with this process. So on Tuesday, Mercury takes us back into the sign of Libra, all about relationship, all about balance, all about harmony, and also about compromise. This is the thing. And this is an important aspect, compromise, of any opposition aspect. It's like there's the polar opposite facing me and I'm facing it. And somewhere along the lines, we need to be able to meet in the middle, this place here, where I have the yin yang symbol. We're trying to meet in the middle of these polarities, okay? That requires compromise. That requires perhaps being able to give something up that we're holding onto at the moment, so that we can kind of connect more harmoniously. So Venus is going to be, Mercury going back into Libra at this time is going to be encouraging that process. How do I now find balance and the middle ground in this process of whatever's been brought up here? So it's a process of finding balance again. The key phrase I came up with here in terms of working with this then, talking of balance, I've got blue tack on the end of my glasses because they're wonky. And so it's just propping it up, but it makes it a little bit more difficult to take them on and off. That was very much a Mercury retrograde in Libra moment there, as this is the solution that I've come up with. This is the fix. This is the improvement to my lack of balance on my glasses. So yeah, the phrase that I've come up with that you might find useful here: where do I need to find balance or compromise to have a greater alignment with my core values right now? Okay, it may be that some of the stuff that's come up as Mercury's been retrograding in Scorpio has revealed something to us about our values. And we're seeing this. I mean, just use the example of, for example, perfect example, actually, the school dinners debate that has erupted these last few days. You know, the core values of, you know, our government, our society, the structure. Venus rules food. Venus rules the sign of Taurus, and it's those basic resources that facilitate human life, what we will need. We need food to stay alive. And so we've had this shocking decision by the government to not allow free school meals for the poorest students in our society to continue during the school holidays. And that's erupted into this very polarized debate around whether, you know, that is a core value that this policy is aligning with or not. And in actual fact, in typical Mercury retrograde fashion, there's been a call to have another vote on this issue and see if that can just actually be changed. So that's the perfect example there. So see if you can kind of relate that to your own experience of how this is showing up. So then on Wednesday, let me just move this for a moment. We're bringing our attention back. Throughout Tuesday, the moon is going to meet up with Neptune. Again, that's really going to pull us into a greater level of empathy, sensitivity. We're going to feel that bit less kind of boundaried. We're going to feel that little bit more exposed to what's going on with other people, which is often a good thing if we need more sympathy and compassion. Neptune is, in a similar fashion to how Uranus is considered the higher octave of Mercury, Neptune is considered the higher octave of Venus. So it's kind of like the pure, unconditional ability to love and value. It's very kind of idealistic territory, yes, because it's completely tapped into who we are at the core of ourselves, fundamentally as loving social beings that need contact with other people. We need to relate, we need to connect. No man is an island. All right, so moon will be tapping us into that flavor. And then on Wednesday, we have the moon ingressing Aries. Aries has been very, very active lately. We'll have been feeling this last week. Mars, this is where Mars is retrograding, and the Mars retrograde has really been showing up lately in terms of the connection it's making to the trio that we have of big, powerful planets up there in Capricorn that really have been at the heart of the profound crisis and change process that we're going through in 2020. This has kind of been like chapter 2 of the crisis. This time it's personal. You know, this is Mars saying all of this crisis that was stirred up at the beginning of 2020 that we went through, many of us in quite a detached way, many of us in a way that actually didn't show up in too problematic a way in terms of our own personal lives. The Mars square to this is really saying, no, you're going to feel some of this pain on an individual level. Mars and Aries being me, I am the individual, the self. So many people now are moving into this territory of really experiencing in a very painful, sharp, burning, difficult way how this is showing up now. So when we have the moon going through this area of the sky, she's meeting up with Chiron, our core wounds, and she's meeting up with this retrograding Mars. Mars is getting close to its station. So again, a very, very intense moment. That's coming next week. I'll talk more about it then. So flaring up all this stuff, and don't forget, the moon is growing, she's waxing, she's moving towards her fullness. And so, you know, as she's growing, it's increasing what she passes by, what she's reflecting back to us, again, is increased in intensity as well. So from Wednesday through to Friday, we've got the moon flaring up and intensifying and making us really feel and experience that Mars squaring Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter in Capricorn. If you're into your photography or just looking at the night sky, which I recommend everyone do to deepen their connection to these planets, to actually communicate and connect with them, it'll be Thursday evening here in the UK that the moon will come together with Mars in the evening sky. Mars is very, very clear to see right now because during the retrograde, it's closer to the Earth than it gets in its cycle. So around 6:30 on Thursday evening, go outside and you will see this almost full moon, a waxing gibbous moon, alongside Mars. And have a conversation, literally reach out and have a conversation with these guys, talk to them, make that connection, and continue the work that you're doing. When I talk about the work, what I mean is Mars retrograde in Aries is what it means to be a warrior, what it means to be a hero, what it means to be masculine. And we all have the masculine essence within us, whatever gender you show up as in physical form or identify with. We all have Mars and Venus within us. So what's your connection to your Mars energy, and how is that being pushed to change? All right. And I think the world needs a lot of this. I think a lot of the masculinity that's showing up in our world is the toxic masculinity that we really need to refine and purify and heal. And so we're going through this on a very individual basis. What does it really mean to be a warrior? Does that mean just being aggressive and pushing for what we want? Or does it mean having courage? And that's entirely different. The courage to be vulnerable, the courage to step out of ego, the courage to do things that perhaps we don't want to do, but that help us move beyond the ego. So it's our connection to courage. That's the work that we're being asked to do with the Mars retrograde in Aries. So Moon is going to activate a lot of this between those days. Okay, we're then really, really moving into, once the moon ingresses the sign of Taurus, this is where we're going to have the full moon. Really, really powerful full moon. You'll hear a lot of people talking about this. The moon has a lot of what we call dignity in the sign of Taurus. It's considered to be exalted in the sign of Taurus. So moon gives off a really wonderful expression of herself in this sign. It's a feminine sign, okay? It's ruled by the planet Venus, okay? Venus, by the time we get to the full moon, Venus will actually be in her home sign of Libra, okay? So she also has more dignity because it's her home sign. She's domiciled, what we call domiciled in Libra. It's her home sign. All right, so she is now in Libra, so giving a better expression of herself. Venus is in this feminine Venusian ruled sign, which is lovely because the moon is all about family and caring and nurturing. But also it's an earth sign. So that's twofold. That essentially means that it gives a more grounded kind of approach to moon things, which is our emotions and how we kind of emotionally react to life before we kind of engage our consciousness and make a decision about how we react. It's kind of like that spontaneous, oh, you know, my moon sign, your moon sign in your natal chart will show us how you kind of like that initial lightning knee-jerk response essentially to life. In Taurus, that's a very grounded, very calm approach. So that's really, really helpful. But it's feminine, it's kind, it's caring, it's nurturing. So it's a beautiful Mother Earth kind of energy moon in Taurus. I love it. So this is the second, it's a blue moon. You'll hear people talk about it being a blue moon. Essentially, all that means is that it's the second full moon within a month. Astrologically, I'm not sure that there's an awful lot to be gained from that piece of knowledge. So what are we looking at? What is this full moon really speaking to? Well, this full moon is to the degree exactly conjunct. So this is October the 31st, taking place on Halloween. On Saturday, which is Saturn's Day. This is taking place at 8 degrees of Taurus. So have a look in your chart, see what house Taurus occupies, because that's where things are going to be coming up. What planets are involved at 8 degrees of Taurus. This is about 2 o'clock in the afternoon here in the UK on Saturday that we have this full moon. It's the halfway point of a lunar cycle that was started with the Taurus new moon that took place around, I think it was around about the 23rd of April this year. So around about that time, back in spring, if you're working with lunar cycles or you just knew it was a new moon, what was going on within you at that time? What were you processing? Perhaps you journal, perhaps you keep a diary. You can refer back to it around that date. And then what we're going to get now is the big feedback session that we have with the universe at the full moon. The cosmic mirror is held up in our faces and it's reflecting back to us, you know, how far have we come on that journey? What progress have we made with bringing into being what we were hoping for at that new moon? And that will be relating to, you know, if you're able to refine it, if you work with me with your moon Dala readings, or if you work on an individual level with moon cycles, what were the intentions that you sowed, and what area of life were they specific to in terms of where is Taurus in your chart and what planets or angles are contained within it? It really, really, really helps you refine down this kind of law of attraction work, or just our journey through life, making things more specific and refined. So they're more efficient, essentially. So what we've got going on here then, we've got the moon exactly conjunct Uranus. Uranus, as I mentioned earlier, the great awakener. It's very destabilizing energy because it's shocking, it's fast, and it wants change. It wants us to shed layers of conforming. It wants us to shed where we've been conditioned. So this, with the moon being the people, the public as well, this could be quite a rebellious, this could be encouraging that, stimulating those feelings of a need to rebel in some way. And there's an awful lot going on out there that people want to rebel about. So I'm imagining we may see some more of that, although with the moon being in Taurus, it might help to stabilize and ground that and make it a little bit more practical. But ultimately, Uranus is about shedding all the conditioning that's been imposed over what we consider to be the authentic self. Uranus is the planet that we talk about in terms of being the authentic self. As we came onto this planet to be, and the 3D reality, which we're dealing with the earth signs, and particularly with Taurus in this sense, is all about the journey of that consciousness, that spark of consciousness that we all are and have through the experience of being embodied. Taurus is all about the five senses and the physical, actual, literal 3D meat suit, I call it, that we're all walking around in. So it's, you know, where are we at in terms of the relationship, the Venus stuff, the relationship between the physical body and the physical manifestation of self and that core conscious spark, that divine spark that is what brings that, you know, that collection of organs and bones into human life. It's so special. You know, this is the core of what it is to be a human being and to be a completely individual and unique human being from all of the others. You know, we all came here to be us. And unfortunately, the requirements of the physical world as it currently stands, and don't forget, we're dealing with this to a great deal with the what's going on in fellow Earth sign Capricorn, the system, the structure of our lives right now imposes conditions on us. It says, well, that's okay, you can be you, but only to a certain extent, only where it shows up in terms of it's the contribution it can make to other people. And this is where some of that compromise that I talk about comes in, that the compromise over there being to the sun in Scorpio, this opposition, the sun and moon in opposition at the full moon. You know, how do I find the middle ground between how I am an individual and how I need to be in order to meet with the 3D reality that I find myself in, which involves 8 billion other people. And we're all really, really having to navigate this territory. And as we move through 2021, that's going to be an even more profound experience that we're all kind of coming to terms with. So this opening up of consciousness, this revealing process, because there's still, you know, a loose connection to that Mercury retrograde present here in the opposition. So it's this what's been revealed, what's been washed up to the surface, or what now needs to be processed in my consciousness as this divine spark of the individual. How do I relate that to my physical incarnation and how I relate to other people? That's going to be kind of I'm interpreting that's what's going to be at the core of the revelations that come up for us to work with. Okay, what am I if I, you know, aside from my physical body, and what am I when I'm in it, and how do I pair up the two? This is also a conversation, a celestial conversation with you about vulnerability again, that courage, the courage to be vulnerable, what courage really looks like that Mars is tapping us into, but the courage to be exposed or to see aspects of the self. Okay, it might just shock us. It might just be a lightning bolt that shows up in our life around this time that forces us, that shocks us into seeing some aspect of ourself that we've not been willing to look at or haven't had the courage up to this point to look at. And this is very much about intimacy. Physical intimacy, yes, 100%, because Taurus is the five senses, it is the 5D reality. And our self-esteem as well around that shows up in Taurus. But the intimacy in terms of how I can connect with other people. Scorpio is all about that. It's all about, you know, the deepest connection that I can make with another person, be that in terms of my physical self and the physical acts of intimacy, but also in terms of the emotions. Scorpio is all about the emotions. Can I be emotionally completely laid bare? Can I be naked? And this is the closest we get to it, I think, is when we're naked with another person in our physical form. But this is saying, can I do that in my emotional form? And this is why the two so often are entangled. This is why relationships get so complex, because when we touch into one, we're pulled into the other. Okay, the inability to separate the emotional connection when we have a sexual connection, for example, with another person. They're intimately linked, literally intimately. And this is what this is all about. How intimate am I? And with Taurus being the self and Scorpio being the other, this is saying I can learn to be more intimate with other people when I learn to be more intimate and connected to myself. So in learning, in experiencing this revelation of something within myself that has been hidden, I have an opportunity here to become more connected to it, more intimate with it. And this is why I really encourage you to sit with uncomfortable things. Don't want to push it away or heal it or hand it over to God or, move higher and all of these things, all this spiritual bypassing that we do. No, we need to connect. We need to be present with that and have intimacy, core intimacy with that shadow aspect of the self, because we can't be intimately connected to another in the most profound way, the way that our souls long for, if we can't be completely honest and vulnerable and intimately connected with ourself. So this is fundamental to improving our relationships with other people, is our relationship to self. And a lot of this is going to be exposed, and that might not be comfortable. This is an opposition, it's a full moon, and it's a shocking energy taking place in fixed signs. It's unlikely to be comfortable. Essentially, the catchphrase for this is the truth sets you free. Uranus is a liberating energy. It's all about freedom. The truth sets you free, but you might not like what you see. And please just don't shy away from it. Whatever you see, just please don't shy away from it. Just be with it. And this is where you will find the capacity to transform it, to really transform it, not appear like you're transforming it or say, oh yeah, I've done that piece of work now because I've escaped it. No. That's not transformation. It's bypassing. So really, really, really get intimate, get deep, and hold this stuff. And then when you can be more intimate with yourself, you open yourself up to others to have a deeper bond. And I think we need that so much. Everything in our culture at the moment is about separating us, splitting us apart, and being completely different from other people. And this is really going to help us to reconnect. So I hope all that's been useful for you. Another aspect of what's going on at the same time during this full moon, so on the Saturday, and as we move into the Sunday of this week, so as we move onto the 1st of November, Venus, therefore, is going to be in opposition to Chiron. So this is going to be taking us into our core wounds, our wounds that says, I'm not good enough as I am. I'll be rejected. I'll be abandoned. I'll be completely, I'm not as good as everyone else in this respect. So I have to kind of overcompensate for that in order to be accepted. So it's the core of the lack of self-worth, all right, which is what we're dealing with in Taurus. And so with Venus being in opposition to that, it's going to wash this up to the surface, undoubtedly. And it's undoubtedly a whole part in this process of the full moon in terms of, you know, deepening our experience to intimacy. You know, this is really going to show us, this is the full moon's ruler, Venus here. All right. So don't be surprised if some of that pain washes back up to the surface. And as the moon passes through, as we're moving into the full moon, it's going to be activating that anyway. So again, it's like looking at, you know, where am I in terms of my self-esteem, and what's the truth about that? You know, Scorpio really wants the truth. Scorpio doesn't want what's on the surface. Scorpio wants the depths. Scorpio wants the deepness. And so this is, you know, it's really going to take you deep into that stuff. So work with it. Please just work with it, because it's beautiful. This is the areas where the biggest transformations and moves forward can be made. And we've got time to work with that, you know, and I'll be helping you to work with that as we move through the next couple of weeks. Astrology forecast will be following the course of the moon and how we integrate and move that stuff forwards. So, you know, make sure you're subscribed to me so you don't miss out on these sessions. So ultimately, when we are intimate with ourselves, we can be intimate with others, and vice versa. So that's essentially, yeah, that's essentially the core message of the full moon. And it's going to take our consciousness, our level of awareness, to a new level. And once it's an awakening energy. It's called the Great Awakener. And once we're awake, you can't go back to sleep. Essentially, anyone that's gone through a process of you know, becoming woke, as the terminology kind of is now, but you know, awakening to the self, you'll find you can't go back to sleep. There is a comfort, there is a cozy blanket to wrap yourself in of being unconscious. Yeah, I'm wonderful. And sometimes we're like, oh, I don't want to be conscious anymore, because it forces me to take responsibility. You know, when you know something, you can't unknow it. So there's a responsibility that comes alongside consciousness. And we are going to, yeah, that's what we're going to be stepping into, you know, a whole new level. We're going to be leveling up in terms of our consciousness of ourselves. And we're not going to be able to go back to sleep in terms of you know, that aspect of ourself and our lives. But let's look at that with grace, Venus. Let's look at that as an opportunity that the universe is gifting us, that says, I have faith in you. You're ready for this. You're ready to do this piece of work. Your consciousness has lifted itself with the work that you're doing to such a position that it's capable of doing this next piece of the work. And that's an honor. You know, that's a blessing. Okay, so try and look at it in that point of view. I'll stop rambling. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I really, really appreciate and value your support. I'm having some Mercury retrograde issues right now in terms of getting my Facebook and Instagram and things to do what I want them to do. So I'd appreciate your support if you can give me a share to other people who you think might be able to get something, some value from connecting with me and the work that I do and that I put out there. It is free, and I do try to empower people. I'm not just giving an interpretation. I'm teaching a little bit of astrology as well as I go along, and you'll pick up more and more and more the more that you get involved with me, I hope. So please do share it if you think it might be of interest to other people. Give me a like, give me a comment. I would love your feedback on how you find the work that I do, and any requests that you might have. I'd love to be able to serve you in ways that are, you know, that help you more. So let me know if there's something that you'd like me to cover, or a different way in presenting, or something like that, and I'll absolutely take it on board. Have a very, very awakening, enlightening, and beautiful deeply enriching full moon in Taurus. And until I see you next time, lots of love. Bye for now.